On May 24, 1844, Morse's telegraph was officially inaugurated, forever changing the way information circulated worldwide. But what few people know is that it had already been publicly used 24 days earlier in a peculiar episode that left American politicians astonished, reminiscent of the tale of the tortoise and the hare. Today's story took place on May 1, 1844, at a time when few people were familiar with the telegraph, something that needed to change. On that day, the Whig political party convention was scheduled in Baltimore, where candidates for President and Vice President of the United States would be nominated. The Whig Party was one of the major political parties in the United States between 1830 and 1850, meaning they were in the media spotlight at the time. On that day, Morse and Vail had devised an interesting plan to get the telegraph into the newspapers of the time. Vail would stay at an intermediary station of the train traveling from Baltimore, where the convention was taking place, to Washington, where news was publicly disseminated. As soon as the train stopped at the first station, Vail would gather information from passengers about the party's president and vice president nominees and telegraph it to Morse in Washington. But how to telegraph when the telegraph had not yet been officially inaugurated? Here's where the ingenuity of the two inventors comes in. If you watch the video about the invention of the telegraph, you'll recall that the telegraph line they were building with congressional funding was between Baltimore and Washington, and the route of the line they intended to use was already completed. It was 3:30 in the afternoon when the train arrived at the station, and it didn't take long for Vail to know the names of the nominees. Without wasting time, he rushed to the telegraph and began telegraphing the information to Morse, who was waiting anxiously at the other end of the telegraph. Meanwhile, some politicians passing by Vail at the train station decided to ask what he was doing with that strange device. As soon as Vail completed the message, he promptly explained it to the curious ones, who responded with sarcasm and disbelief, in a typical reaction of those who couldn't see the future. At that same moment, on the other end, a characteristic click of the telegraph echoed, and the mechanism began to unwind the paper tape, marking the dashes and dots of the message that was slowly deciphered by Morse. As soon as he finished, Morse stood up somewhat hesitantly and announced, "Gentlemen, the convention has ended. The train with this information has just left Annapolis for Washington, and Mr. Vail telegraphed me the nominees, who are..." Here, again, he hesitated, perhaps imagining the trouble he would cause if he spoke the wrong names. "The names are Clay and Frelinghuysen." Those present were impressed by the accuracy of the information transmitted by the telegraph. But then came the inevitable question. Clay is understandable, everyone knows him, but who is Frelinghuysen? Morse then responded truthfully, "I only know that these are the names Mr. Vail sent me from Annapolis, where he received the news 5 minutes ago from the train bringing the party delegates here." At that time, the 22-mile journey between Annapolis and Washington took about an hour and 15 minutes for the fastest trains. This was enough time for newspapers, always enterprising, to print their papers with the last-minute announcement and hit the streets with the headline, "Extra, extra by telegraph, Clay and Frelinghuysen." When the party delegates disembarked from the train in Washington, they were greeted by an enthusiastic crowd and were shocked to hear the people clamoring for Clay and Frelinghuysen and to see, in bold letters in the newspapers, the information they believed to be exclusively theirs. Like magic, the telegraph had sent the information faster than the train they were traveling on. It was an undeniable proof of the telegraph's success, and the first time its use was mentioned in the newspapers. Morse and Vail's advertising plan had worked. Moreover, this also confirmed that the public investment obtained for the construction of the telegraph was worth every penny.